Hello guys, and welcome to the Steel Division 2 Throwback tournament. The final is being played in Steel Division Normandy 44. This is a 1 versus 1 on Omaha between Hitman, otherwise known as Nilla, and DDRAIG, also known as Curbs. We have the 101st Airborne and we have the 716th Infantry. The Axis side is probably going to have a pretty hard time against the elite infantry of the 101st. The airborne units are going to be very, very strong against the infantry of the 716th, so DDRAIG's going to have to very much rely on his Lorraines, on his IG-18s, and potentially his B2s as well. The B2s are actually pretty decent in this matchup if they can find kills onto the Locust, because without the Locust available, it looks like Hitman's going to have to rely on his M1 guns, which are not going to be as good. Well, they'll be okay at killing the B2s, but the trouble is they're not going to be good against any of these other units. So if like an M1 gun turns up, it's going to be a lot of points invested just to counter a B2, and then the Lorraine's probably just going to hit it anyway. So DDRAIG, if he keeps on top of his recon, which he should be able to do because the 716th do get Fusiliers, which are pretty good, he is actually going to be bringing in some Aufklärer on the top side here. He's also got what looks like a pack 38 at the start. We've got a few units of Osttruppen and the Panzergrenführer there. Yeah, they got the Lorraine in the center, another Osttruppen to the bottom side, and on the very bottom, that's probably going to be the IG, I think, and then the MG and the Panzergrenführer with the B2. Alright, on the top side here, we have the M1 gun. That's going to be some Pathfinders, and we got potentially a 50 cal at the start of the game. Then we have another Pathfinder and 50 cal for the center. Interesting setup here from Hitman for sure. And then we got a couple units of Airborne Engineers, followed up by probably 3 units of Airborne Rifles, and the command there. So very infantry focused from Hitman so far. And it's going to be interesting to see if he does bring a Locust onto the map, and potentially an AT gun, because otherwise this B2 is going to do absolute work on this bottom side. You don't really see much more from DDRAIG. Looks like he's ready to go. So a relatively even spread from DDRAIG, although in the center there's not too much. So a push up this road, for example, would likely lead to a salient, but that's where these troops will most likely be, is in this tree line. So they're going to prevent the push forwards there, whilst DDRAIG kind of makes the push on the very top side and potentially on the bottom side, although there's not actually much infantry to support a push from this B2 and potentially this IG early on, which is kind of interesting because he's going to have to definitely bring in some Osttruppen to try and make a push across the open to this area, whilst also making sure that he pins all these 50 cals. A lot of 50 cals, and that one's going to be actually a 30 cal. That's a lot of cards of machine guns, which is something that I'm not used to seeing with the 101st. There's literally no like armor piercing here at all, other than, oh, he has brought in an AT gun for the top side. But there is no tank up here for DDRAIG, so that top side could be one to watch out for, because DDRAIG is currently countering the play on both sides already at the start. I'm not sure what Hitman's strategy is going to be. A lot of stuff forced into the center. I guess he's probably going to try and take control of this town with the Airborne Engineers. But the Airborne Engineers are going to struggle to push out of this town unless they're covered by things like smoke, so we might see the M1 howitzers come in. I haven't actually talked about the divisions in general. Like the 101st is quite an interesting one, because the 101st relies either on their artillery play or their air play. So he might have like a Mustang, for example, at the start, the Mustang bombers. They're pretty good. Or he will start to bring in artillery, the M1 howitzers and so on. So that sort of play either way is going to be interesting against the 716th. The 716th won't deal with the arty very well, because they have a lot of static fire support weapons, like the Pack 38s and IGs. So that's one way that Hitman here could overwhelm the defenses of Kurbs. Meanwhile, on the side of the 716th, it's really going to be about the B2s in the early game and how much ground he can gain from that, whilst also supporting his infantry pushes with the Lorraines and potentially heavier artillery later on. He will likely have the Werflammens available, and those Werflammens can absolutely destroy the airborne infantry, and if Hitman doesn't get value out of his infantry during this game, that's one way that DDRAIG can really punish him. Otherwise, the 716th isn't a very aggressive division due to its reliance on, again, static fire support weapons and the infantry. So I feel like it's going to be very difficult for him to push forwards, but an interesting matchup nonetheless, and we'll have to see if DDRAIG can prove himself on the 716th, trying to win my heart, that's for sure. I am actually surprised that Hitman isn't putting more forces towards this bottom side. There is, of course, a Panzer II and the IG there that we can see. However, taking this area would be quite an easy one for him to hold, as opposed to trying to push through the hedges on the top side. His infantry is well suited for longer range engagements, especially the airborne rifles. They will destroy Osttruppen at range, but only at the range in which their rifles can get involved, because otherwise the Osttruppen, they do of course have MGs, so they can still hold things back if they are in heavy cover. And we're off. Wow, would you look at that? So here we go. Let's have a look at where these troops are heading. So on the side of Hitman, we've got a relatively concentrated push towards this town and these buildings. We have all of these units sort of spreading out to the mid and top side. For DDRAIG, it looks like he's definitely going to be concentrating through that road on the top side, with one infantry just covering off this town. We have the 2 units trying to push all the way into the town here. Alright, so the MG has set up, the IG-18 is in the bush there, ready to fire at the infantry here. We've got the rifles, they're going to be hitting the Grenadier briefly, with the Lorraine already hammering this 50 cal. But that infantry squad is dead already. The 30 cals of the airborne rifles just demolished that unit, and without that in position, the Osttruppen are going to have to fall back. The 50 cal is melting that Osttruppen squad in the open. They are now pinned, they're going to have to fall back, and it looks like DDRAIG's just going to be bringing more units down here ASAP. He can see the concentration of forces in this town, and is just going to have to make sure that he prevents that from pushing out, because there's already a rather nice salient opening up here due to the 2 infantry units that DDRAIG had in the way being crushed. So it's already a +1 now for Hitman. He's decided to bring up the mortar, and I mentioned how at the start Hitman would have to provide smoke to allow his airborne engineers to push out of the town. Well, so far he hasn't needed it, but he definitely has it available if that is the case. We've got actually a Storch coming in from the side of DDRAIG. He's going to be trying to scout out the top side and see if he can make some ground whilst the infantry pushes down on the bottom side. So the MG-34 actually chunking this airborne engineer nicely. These airborne engineers actually still hitting the Osttruppen, but the B2's coming up. But the airborne rifles are getting close. They're in range with their bazooka. Just need to get line of sight, and that's going to be a very dead B2. Oh, they missed. They missed. The B2, lucky for now. Can the airborne rifles find another shot? Currently, the B2's falling back. The airborne rifles might struggle to stay on target. The IG-18 does manage to hit this 30 cal rather nicely. The 50 cal now opening up again into the mid though. Osttruppen getting melted, that's for sure. MG-34 going to try and fire back, but due to this 50 cal being in the building, that's probably not going to be too effective. Now the airborne rifles though have managed to help pin down the IG-18 with the 60mm mortar, and this is getting to a scary position for DDRAIG, because if some smoke comes down here, then the airborne rifles plus the airborne engineers can push into this town and really put a lot of pressure on, because the airborne rifles can deal with the B2, the airborne engineers can just melt all the infantry and other units that are here. And I was talking about infantry value, that would be a hell of a lot of value. Is that smoke coming down? It is not. That is currently HE support. Now he's going to be bringing the smoke, but it's a little bit late. The airborne engineer just took a chunking from the B2. 50 cal in the mid though has pinned the MG34. The Osttrooper are currently being pushed back. On the top side, the Osttrooper here are engaged with the Airborne Rifles. Airborne Rifles at that range definitely trump the Osttrooper 5 HE versus 11 HE. Quite the disparity, and the center is currently falling to pieces at the moment for DDRAIG. Panzer 39 is on its way to try and prevent some of this infantry from pushing across the open, but some smoke coming in actually from the front side of the town is going to allow a couple units of infantry to push all the way in here. The Airborne Engineers have died, but 2 units of Airborne Rifles coming straight up the main road have now pushed all the way in, and this is going to be extremely scary for DDRAIG. His Airborne Rifles here are very close to this B2. The MG is going to get taken out. The IG-18 is likely to go down very, very soon. That's gone. The Grenführer, they're going to get ripped to shreds. This is a fantastic value. Airborne Rifles just hopefully going to continue that push forwards now and really ambush this B2 and get rid of it. The Osttrooper might be able to help pin the Airborne Rifles just before they get killed themselves, because if that was a continued engagement, 6 Airborne Rifles versus the Osttrooper, and the Osttrooper would have been dead. But thankfully for DDRAIG, the Airborne Rifles already suffering a little bit of stress there. So HE is coming in, that's towards where the IG was, but the IG is already dead, so there we go. Airborne Rifles trying to house hop forwards and get their bazooka on target. Will they hit the mark this time? They were aligning, but they weren't allowed to fire. Looks like Hitman's just trying to get as close as possible. Gets the ammo storage hit, that's not the critical he's looking for. And meanwhile in the center, the Osttrooper here actually getting hit by their own Lorraine briefly. And that's just one sad Osttrooper behind enemy lines now. Hitman's already pushing a +2. On the top side, things aren't going too well either. The Storch just revealing that Hitman is pushing hard with his Airborne Rifles. And this infantry play that Hitman's got going on right now is actually working out very nicely. I was a little bit worried that with the armor of DDRAIG in position, that this infantry wouldn't be able to push too far forwards, but the great use of smoke has allowed Hitman to do all he needs to do. Airborne Engineers, they're absolutely melting that squad as it comes forwards. Another recon on the bottom side. Now, to me, this recon is a little bit of a waste of time because there's a lot of infantry, and a lot of the infantry will be hard to spot for the Storch. If we actually go to DDRAIG's point of view right now, you can only see the infantry that's purposefully out in the open, and only for a short amount of time. Yes, you can see where the mortar is to potentially counter battery that with the Lorraines, but otherwise this is really awkward for DDRAIG, and that's like a 50-point Storch, right? Or 60 points even, which could be spent on 3 units of Osttrooper, for example. That's the difference there. So MG34, that's going to prevent the Airborne Rifles from moving across the open at least, but this is not looking good anywhere on the map for DDRAIG so far. The value out of Hitman is certainly coming to the fore, and the Airborne Rifles here, only a matter of time surely until they bump into the Speertrupp. We've got the M1 gun on the main road. Will it get the kill onto the B2 before it turns off? That's a track wheel destroyed. That B2 is not going anywhere. And it doesn't have HE to pin down the M1 gun. It's surely going to be dead very shortly. The B2 is getting a crossfire onto the Airborne Rifles here. They're going to be able to get behind cover rather quickly though, due to that tree line. Just a matter of time until the M1 gun finds the kill. And in the center, well, we've got an M3 gun taking out that tank, so no Panzer 39 anymore, and things are just going from bad to worse here as the perfect AT gun for each position is in position. So we've got the M1 gun for the B2 and the M3 gun for the lighter vehicle in the center. Really nice placement there from Hitman, is getting the job done. This is really, really nice play from Hitman. I'm actually very surprised how well he's doing. I thought that DDRAIG would chunk him a bit more, but it seems as though with the help of this mortar on the bottom side, these infantry squads have managed to make quite a lot of ground, and the Lorraines here just aren't really getting the job done. Mustang coming in to bomb this Lorraine. That's going to be forcing that back and stopping it from firing at the bottom side for the time being, allowing more freedom for this infantry. And that's all that Hitman really needs to do. He's managed to surrender another unit on the top side. He's got the Airborne Rifles surrendering, I guess, the Osttrooper there. And now we're up to 64% lead across the entire map. It's not like just one section of the map's being pushed. Like, the whole map is under threat here. And this can be very, very difficult for DDRAIG to push back onto, because he doesn't really get... It doesn't get any better from here for the 716th. It only gets worse. You've got all of your assets in Phase A, the B2s, the Lorraines. And then after that, yes, you can potentially do loads of damage with something like a Verflammen. But from this point onwards, you're fighting against elite entrenched infantry, and that's going to be very, very difficult to deal with. Also, it looks like the Storch is going to get shot down here. Bofors, will that manage to get the kill? This Storch is definitely oil leaking all over the place, and it's going to go down. So that's another 60-point shot out the sky. And I'm surprised that Hitman is stopping where he is for now. Maybe the B2 is providing a bit too much of a threat. The IG-18 in the center and the bottom side. But honestly, again, he's got the mortar, he's got the smoke. He's also got the mortar on the top side. This mortar is going to be going for the HE shots onto the IG-18 just to pin that down and allow the airborne rifles to continue their push up. Pathfinders are in a really sneaky position there. Recon moving ahead of his troops is doing the job so far. Bofors going to be currently hitting the Storch, going to force that back, and now the ME-109 G2R1 coming in with a bombing strike onto the 60mm mortar. DDRAIG has had enough, but that's not going to get the kill. The pinning from the Bofors made that incredibly inaccurate, whilst Hitman free strike onto the IG-18. That goes down. More room for maneuver for the infantry on the bottom side. We got the Lorraine now firing at where the Bofors was firing from, just to try and take that out, but this is a +3 for Hitman, so he's going to be winning the game in 8 minutes and 20 seconds if this continues. And I'm really struggling to see a way in which DDRAIG can come back into this match. From the start, Hitman has had the jump on everything that Curbs is going to do. I thought that Curbs might be able to control the bottom side with the unit composition that he had, but just one more to turn that around after the start of the game. With the smoke support, getting the infantry into this town. I actually mentioned how controlling this town would be devastating for DDRAIG, and that's come to fruition. In the middle, I didn't expect so much ground to be lost for DDRAIG, but I guess he didn't have that many units here, so that would have been the best way for Hitman to push, and well, look at that. After 11 minutes and 31 seconds, DDRAIG is going to give up that game and go for a winning game 2, hopefully for him, because this is a best of 3. So we're going to have to look out in the next game, see if he can get the work done. But Hitman coming in strong. 630 kills to 30 losses. That is a crushing victory. Absolutely insane stuff here. Wow, check out the value on these airborne rifles. So, airborne rifles killing off MG34, Grenadier, Osttruppen, already pays itself off. Airborne rifles killing one IG-18, pays itself off. The 50 cal in the center killing the Speertrupp, the MG34, and the Osttruppen. You got the M3 gun killing 2 Panzer 39s. It's every single unit is getting value. And the M1 gun is killing the B2. You've got the Bofors shooting down the Storch. Like, everything that Hitman brought in did its job exactly the way it was supposed to, and all he lost was 1 unit of airborne engineers to the B2, and that was just because of the lack of smoke towards them. Crazy victory. That is a shame for the 716th, because like a couple of B2s there could have done absolute work, but the AT guns, if they're used correctly, the M1 guns just to snipe those B2s, you know, the 716th has a hard time, because they don't really have much else to hold things back. And if the 101st goes for like an artillery doctrine, like I said, then you can't really do anything. You can't move forward, you can't be aggressive, because all of those IGs get pinned by mortars and M1 howitzers. But it looked like Hitman kind of just went for like the mortars to assist him in the early game, and then focused on his airplay. So he brought in the Mustangs, the Thunderbolt, and those are what kind of just pinned the Lorraines to stop them from pinning his infantry, and then also the rocket strike onto the IG-18 we saw as well. So really, really well played from Hitman. Incredible stuff. 11 minutes and 31 seconds. I didn't see that coming. That was incredible. Really, really fantastic game from Hitman. Either way, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in Game 2 between Nilla and DDRAIG. Goodbye.